Hello friends, welcome back to my studio. Hope you're well. I thought today we would mix some colours. Those of you who follow me on Instagram will see that I posted an image of my most recent painting on canvas, and I used a new colour palette, soft pinky, rosy, peachy sort of colour that I'm attracted to, and probably what you'd call coastal colours. I found the image on Pinterest, and I am on Pinterest as well. I am really just beginning to put my artwork on there, but if you'd like to follow along, it's as everything is all under Selina Wilson Art. So go along and have a look at the sort of pins that I'm saving. And so this is one of those colour palettes. I've got a few that I might do a few more vlogs on this if you're finding them interesting. But today we're just going to start with this coastal palette. What was nice about this image, it had the colour number. So these codes I was able to put into Google, and I got the RGB reference for those. And so with those codes then, I went into the Golden Artist Colours website, and they have an acrylic, and they also now have an oil mixer that you can upload an image, put a little dropper point on the image, and it will tell you how to mix that colour. And it's not accurate because it depends on the quality of image you're uploading, and then the lighting, and whether you've adjusted the colour biases in the image before you upload it, and where you got your image from, all play a part in slightly changing what the breakdown will be. But it gets you very, very close, and certainly good enough. So that's what I did with these colours. Problem I had with this first peachy colour was the colour code was CDB499, and when I put that into the colour coder, it gave me that it was a black, a Hansa yellow, and a Titan Mars pale. I ran out of the Titan Mars pale as I was mixing it. I've now got a massive big tub if you saw my new art supplies haul vlog. And so I thought I'd mix that up again today. I did have a little bit of trouble. I'm not sure it's totally accurate. The other thing to mention, because it's a golden product, it will offer you what golden paints to mix those colors with. I think there is a button that you can select to choose other brands, but of course Golden are going to promote their golden brands, so it does rely on a little bit about you having golden range paints to mix these colors. But again, you can get something that's very close. It's not foolproof though. I did, when I was mixing it, I began and I was mixing away, and I got this kind of khaki yellow, like a soft mud, basically. Not a very nice colour, and I had a fair bit of it, and you know, you start to get so disheartened of like, oh, this should be simple. It said so much of this paint, so much of that, and why have I, that's nowhere near the peachy colour that I've got. And I think that's where I had a bit of trouble with. I'm not sure the code's totally right for that colour, or the RGB reference I got for it wasn't correct. I don't know, but it went very wrong. However, this colour has become a magical ingredient in my paintings, that it's like a neutral, acts as a neutral. It acts as, because it's got these other colors in the color palette in here, and because it's so kind of dull and lifeless, it really lifts all the other colors, and you can see that in play here in this most recent painting, and it's become really, really, really lovely. Let's get into how to actually mix this color palette, hoping that you find it useful and you might mix these colors and use them in your artwork soon too. So here are my notes on this colour palette here, and it's now become a little bit hard to see because as I was mixing I was swatching to see how close to the colour I was getting. And of course this, I just printed this out on my printer, so these colours aren't going to be totally true to the colours if you went and bought them in a paint shop, but we can get pretty close. And I swatched them up just on this piece of watercolour paper, and you can see how lovely they are working together. I'm a little bit darker in some of the colours, and I've added a colour of my own into the mix. But yeah, it's a lovely range, so you can use this as your highlight and these as your darks. So the very first colour is this CDB 499. The golden mixer said to use 1 part bone black, 2 part Hansa yellow and 11 parts of Titan Mars pale. And so because I'm much more visual than being able to understand that, I've gone in and put the colours down. Now I haven't got a bone black, I've just got a general black in the studio because I don't use black. So I just did have a very old tube laying around of an Atelier brand. So I think it's Mars black actually. So black. The Hansa yellow I didn't think I had, so I used the alternative of the yellow Azo mid. But since having a bit of a clean up in the studio, I have found Hansa yellow, so we'll use that today. And then the Titan Mars pale. So the difference on, here's the colour that I ended up with, and it's darker because it's on paper, different paper, and this is real paint as opposed to a printer ink. But you can see I've got something that references that rosy, soft, peachy colour. So I've done, as I do, a little reference swatch, and I've got there, and I've adjusted here from what the golden said as I was mixing it. That's the thing, this is what golden told me to mix. And then as I was mixing it up myself, because I'd substituted the yellow Azo, I put some titanium white and a little bit of alizarin crimson in there as well. And I adjusted the amounts there. So, but let's have a play and see if I can mix this colour again, live action. Here's the colour in the tub. Needs a bit of a mix. But there's the colour there. It's a really lovely colour. You can see the amount of Titan Mars pale in there. I might just swatch that for you as a comparison. So that's our colour. And then the Titan Mars pale. And that's what's lovely about mixing these colour palettes or colours with colours that you have. You can use them then in conjunction with each other. So bring that a bit closer. Hopefully you can see it's a little bit more muted, that's the black in there, and also a little more red in there with the alizarin crimson. But see how lovely they work. There's just this slight shift in them. And so then when you use these two colours in a painting together, they're in harmony because they share a commonality of the Titan Mars pale, and they both actually have white in them as well, the titanium white. But it just gives you this slightly different shade of this colour that'll just help really bring depth and richness into your work. Okay, so here's our 3 colours that make up this peachy colour. And it's meant to be bone black, but I only have Mars black. I did find the light Hansa yellow and the titanium Mars pale. I don't want to tip it because I don't want the paint to come out. So I find mixing paint with a palette knife is much better, because if you use a brush, all the paint goes up into the bristles and you lose and waste a lot of paint, and it doesn't mix as well. But with the palette knife, you can really blend it in, and you can get it mostly off the palette knife as well, so less wastage. So we've got point, if we're talking in parts, we've got point, and see this Atelier paint does get a bit watery. It's not the water in it, it's the binder medium, but I don't know if you can see, if I can't really zoom in, but it's separated. So half a part of that to 2 parts. Ooh, that's also gone a bit yuck. Try and mix that up a bit. It's all leaky. And this is all by eye, but we want 2 parts of that. We can adjust it as we go. And then we want 15 parts. So we want a big amount of that one. Let's begin there. You can see the black in there, muting that down. So let's have a look at this. Some yellow there that hasn't mixed in. So it's not as pink as this one. And that's probably why I added in a bit of the alizarin crimson, was to pick up that peachiness of that. I think it's dulled the Titan Mars pale down enough. If we just see the comparison there, it's definitely dulled it off. If we have a look at it against our colour swatch here. So we're still a little bit yellow there. We need to bring it, so I could just add a lot more of the Titan Mars pale, but if I just pop a bit of alizarin crimson in there, which is this here, this will get us there a little bit quicker. Now on the card I've written it's just a kiss, and what I mean by that is literally a little kiss. I should have kept some aside so I could show you how much that's changed. There it is there. And we're still peachy. We need to be, let's put another little kiss of that, because of course these quantities all change depending on how much paint you've got down in front of you, which is why it's really, you just have to keep practicing, and it's fun. Feels like I'm playing with melted ice cream or something, and you learn so much about being able to see when it's pushing perhaps towards too green or too red and things like that. So we're definitely more peachy there. If you can see that. So we're very close, And on here I've said some titanium white, so let's put a smidge of that in. That's where keeping notes too. If I hadn't have marked down those other two additions I made to get to this, I would have struggled. I would have just kept, you know, I probably would have wasted a lot of Titan Mars Pale trying to get to it when I could get there quicker, because we know we're wanting to move away from yellow and more towards the red to get this to be peach from where it was. Not too much of a change, but getting there. So now that I'm mixing it again, I can put down that it's, because I haven't actually written a total there of the Titan White, so I can now make a note that it's got a fair bit of titanium white in it to get us there. It's a really lovely colour, isn't it? Okay, let's have a look. Now it's going to show a little bit different because it's wet as opposed to dry, but I'd say once that dries, that's the colour there, so we've made that there. And I'm going to put it all in my tub. That's the other great thing about the palette knife, is being able to pick all that up like that and have very little wastage. Okay, the next one is this lovely classic ocean soft bluey grey. It's BBC 5B9 and it's got permanent green light, titanium green pale, a neutral grey and a titanium white. Now I don't have any permanent green light, so I substituted it from what I could find. The closest I have is this Australian sap green, and look, to be honest, I found it really hard to get to this colour because of this substitution, I think. So you can see it's still got that bluey grey feel, but it's not, I don't know if you can see that now that I've put that on that page, but it's certainly not as pale as this. Let's just play around. Bring some white. There we go. Bit green. Yeah, that's the trouble I'm having with that green substitute. It's more green than blue, that mix. So here's my little recipe on how I got there. Oh, and that's why it's a bit more like this, because I put one of my favourite colours is this one, the Australian Blue Gum with the unbleached titanium. I love this colour. I use it all the time. And I think to try and get this colour to be a bit more blue, I put a little bit of this mix in there. But you can see for landscapes and ocean, just how beautiful these colours are. The next colour on the list is this 8AA494, and I couldn't mix it, as you can see my colour swatches here, because the recipe here from Golden is light green, bone black, cobalt green and Titan Mars Pale. by this stage I'd run out of the Titan Mars Pale. I don't have any Cobalt Green. The Bone Black, I'm substituting Mars Black already, and the light green is also different from Golden. So here's the recipe here. This is the light green I have, the black I have, the Cobalt Green, well, it's not, and the Titan Mars Pale. So I couldn't get anywhere near that colour, but what I did mix, because those substitutes just didn't get me there, but I mixed this really lovely neutral grey, and this is, because I didn't have any Titan Mars Pale, I mixed Burnt Umber with Titanium White, which I've shown you in a previous video on here. This is the Titan Mars Pale True, and this is what it has in it, this brown oxide colour, and the more white you take out, the closer to the brown you get, or the more white, titanium white, you put in, the closer you get to this. So I think that's why this colour went so vastly wrong, because I just didn't have what I needed in the studio. But I did mix this really lovely, and it's found to be very useful neutral colour that still goes really well with this palette. This is how I made it. Could have a go now that I've got the titanium white here, but I haven't got those other colours. So that's where this falls into difficulty. But the bonus is playing around. I would never have got this colour before without just playing around with colour and seeing where I would get to. And this has turned out to be a very useful colour. And then the last colour is this 78 Triple A1. Lovely, more opaque, more saturated blue. And here's what I managed to get to. I'll show you there. So this is a little bit whiter, but I really liked this because, as I said earlier, it reminded me of what the Australian blue gum looks like straight out of the tube. So I was happy to stay with this colour. And Golden told me to mix this. I needed nickel azo yellow, cobalt green, viridian green, and neutral grey. Now, I didn't have cobalt green or neutral grey. I've only got the yellow and the green in the studio. So what I did, and you can see here where I've said, well, I haven't got these colours, I just used some Australian blue gum straight. So I'll just get that. So this is the Australian blue gum, and you can see how close that is and why it, I'll just show you here again, why it reminded me of that. See how close they are. So I thought, well, I'll just start with this. This is so close, I'll start with it, and I'll just grey it off a little bit. So I just used the Australian blue gum. I don't use grey, but I did manage to find some in my partner's stash of paint. Now, it's not the grey that Golden recommended. It's a toning grey, but it's the grey I had. And a kiss of Viridian, which is this here, which you can see how well that would marry into a coastal palette. So they're the three colours I used to get this lovely colour here. You see it's a little bit different when it's wet. And swatched up, it's got a little bit thick. We get this, which is really, really lovely blue. And it does look You know, I've still got that nice opaque, rich, deeper colour that was in the palette. And then this is my Australian blue gum with the unbleached titanium mix. It's a really lovely colour to use together, like I was saying earlier about these two colours. They've got a hero colour, which is this. This is this Australian blue gum. Absolutely love the Australian range that Matisse make. So yeah, you can see, if I get that in shot, it's not exactly the colour palette that I found on Pinterest, but it's a lovely coastal looking palette, and I think they work really, really well together. What I also did in the painting that I liked, that I mentioned when I was showing my art haul, that using this grey straight with these colours and against these, so maybe I'll put it up here, it looked blue. It doesn't necessarily look, it's got a lot of blue tone to it with these colours. So you can see already I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 colours. That's plenty to use on a painting. Just with using a handful of paints, I've got this lovely palette that produced this really lovely painting. So here's the painting that I've been referencing. This is the size, and I thought I'd just hold these colour swatches up and show you where I've used them within the piece. So if I just bring you a little closer. So this blue, which is made from these, is up in the sky here, mostly. This accidental lovely neutral, which is these colours here, I've used down, so this big long stretch here, a little bit of burnt umber in it, and that's given me that darker colour, as I was talking earlier, that mixing those colours together, or how they can play together. This lighter here, which is made up of these. This I've used here, and I think a little bit in the sky, with a little bit of blending in with those other colours. When it's actually as part of the image, it's showing up to be quite a bright, more of a highlight sort of a colour, depending on where I've used it. Where I've got it next to this dark, it's lighter, and where I've got it here, it blends more. So that's what I'm talking about, getting used to and just having a play around, seeing what colours do together. It's all very well to mix up your swatches, but then how do they perform together? And then our lovely peach that we began with is this one, and of course it's here in the background underneath the sky in here. Our murky kind of yellowy mustard colour are these ones in here, which I think the piece really needed, and I wasn't intending on mixing this colour at all, but you can see how well, because again it's got similar colours that the other colours have in them, how well it's in harmony with the rest, but it just gives this difference to it that works really, really well. Happy accident. Burnt umber, which is similar oxide that the Titan Mars Pale has in it, so I knew it was going to work with this, and I've put that in several places and mixed it with other colours to add some more depth. And the Viridian Green, well, one of the colours has in it, I've used straight from the tube, and that's these colours that you can see in here. That, of course, because this colour is already there with one of the other colours, it sits really well. It doesn't sit in contrast to it, it sits in harmony. So how is that? Would you use those colours? I decided not to show you the mixing of the colours because it'd be a very boring video, I think, of just watching. I know it is nice to mix paint, but I thought I'd just try and get the information across and not have an hour-long video of watching paint being mixed. If you pop over to my Pinterest account, you'll find that on my colour palette board, so if you can have an image of that yourself, and hop onto the Golden website, not sponsored, to have a look at how you can mix colours. As you can see, I made a lot of adjustments as I mixed these colours and some substitutes, but still got not the exact colour palette, but got a really lovely workable palette that's resulted in, I think, a really, really lovely painting. So there's our lovely coastal colour palette, and you can see quite many very soft colours. It's definitely where I'm headed, but I was able to still have some highlights and some darker tones in there, some colours that lead themselves to being transparent and opaque, so it's got that variety all within the one palette, limited palette, nice muted tones. I hope that inspires you. I hope you get mixing some of these. Let me know what wild and wonderful colours you do get to, even if you don't get to these. Most of all, just have fun with it. It's a sheer delight to be able to just play with colour in your studio. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate you being here. I hope you have a lovely week, and I shall see you next week. Bye.